Hello everybody, it's Mr. Di Ocampo and I'm going to go through pages 10, 11, and 12 of the Math Digital Notebook. This assignment is called Equivalent Fractions, Decimals, and Percents. Equivalent is just a fancy word that means equal. And so in the next few pages, we will practice writing fractions, decimals, and percents that are equal to each other. And we learned last week that there are many ways to express a portion or a part, such as fractions, decimals, and percents. Now, one thing to do to get you ready to do this assignment is knowing how to zoom in and zoom out. Zoom in gets you closer so that you can see the pages better. Zoom out to make it smaller and go farther away, okay? So I'm going to recommend zooming in, so do that right now. And what we're going to do now is we're going to work on page 11. We'll do some of this together, okay? So the title is Percents, Fractions, and Decimals, and the directions say, please do number 1 and number 2 together with the video. And so feel free to pause this video, feel free to rewind this video, do what you need to do so that you are learning how to do number 1 and number 2. Not just copying, but true learning, okay? So over here on page 11 of your notebook, it says here, the block on the left is a 100% block. So this whole thing is 100%. The block is also called a 1 block. So this block has two different names, a 100% block, because if you count those tiny squares, there are 100 of them. It's also called a 1 block because this block also represents one whole. Okay, so 100% block and 1 block. Now let's take a look at the next block, and it's shaded in, you'll notice. The block on the left is a picture of 23% shaded. So you notice that 23% is colored in. Now you'll also notice that if you try to count how many blocks, how many tiny squares are shaded, you will notice that 23 of them are shaded. That's why the block on the left is a picture of 23% shaded. 23% is equal to 23 over 100. That's because of what we learned recently, that the word percent means over 100 or out of 100. Okay, so 23% equals 23 over 100. That's what we learned last week. When you see 23 over 100, you can say 23 hundredths. So when you see this, you can say 23 hundredths. Practice saying that right now. 23 hundredths. Okay, so whenever you see this, say 23 hundredths. So you can say 23%, which is this thing, and this thing, is the same thing as 23 hundredths. 23% is equal to this, is the same as this, which is also the same as this. 23%, 23 hundredths, 23 hundredths. Okay. Now, why is this called 23 hundredths? Well, you'll notice in the next page that they talk about place value. So I'm hoping that this is something that you learned back in elementary school, where if we go to the right of the decimal point, here's the tens place. This 4 is in the tens place, and this 7 is in the hundreds place. So what we're really looking at over here is 47 hundredths, okay? All right, let's go back to this example, all right? Our goal today is to see if you can write a percent as a decimal. So we're going from percents to a decimal. Let's see if you can write percents as decimals. And notice too that we're going to have fractions to help us out. Okay? All right. Again, feel free to pause the video and rewind the video. You're basically going to, we're doing this together through video. All right, let's take a look at number 1. Now, you might want to pause the video and count how many gray tiny squares are shaded. How many of these tiny squares are shaded gray? Go ahead, pause the video and count them. Now here, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81. So, by the way, you can start wherever you like, but if you're starting out and you're a little confused right now, it's okay. You might realize that this picture is 81 out of 100. If you count all the gray squares, 81 out of 100 are shaded. Oh, wait a minute. Remember percent means out of 100? Percent means out of 100. We learned this last week. So 81 over 100 is the same thing as 81%. That's what we learned last week. Okay. Now, I really like this part right here where it tells you to practice saying things. Really, if you say this fraction, it's going to help you with the decimal easily. I'll tell you how. Okay? Instead of saying just 8100, instead of just saying 81 over 100, say 81 hundredths. Say it. 81 hundredths. 81 hundredths. 81 hundredths. So, how do you write 81 hundredths as a decimal? Well, if you've been saying it, saying it's going to be super helpful. Okay? This is also 81 hundredths because the last digit is in the hundredths place. And let me show you what I mean by that. See this 1? This last digit is in the hundredths place. So all you have to say is 81 hundredths. 81 hundredths. And 81 hundredths is 81%. Okay? I hope this is making more sense. All right, let's go to number 2. Oh, wow. My writing still stays there. Interesting. All right, let's try the next one. Wow, this is a lot of gray squares to count. So one of my strategies that I can use is let me count the white ones here. And I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Unfortunately, you can't write on this. I wish there was a better way to do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You might want to do this on paper then. Okay, so I know there's 6 white squares here. I know there's another 6 white squares here. And so on. There's another 6, another 6, another 6. Wait a minute, that's 1, 2, 3 groups of 6, 4 groups of 6, 5 groups of 6. 5 groups of 6 is the same thing as 5 times 6. 5 times 6 is 30, so there are 30 white squares. But we're counting gray squares, okay? We're not counting white squares. So wait, how many gray squares are there? Well, if there's 100 total squares, and we subtract the 30 white squares, then that'll tell us how many gray squares there are. So what's 100 minus 30? And that's 70, okay? So then there are 70 gray squares. So we would say 70 over 100, and you would type this out. Now, Question for you. If this is 70 over 100, what do we write over here? Remember, percent means out of 100. So this is 70%. Okay. That's why this fraction was important, because it helps with this part. And do you remember how to say this? How do you say this? Now, 70 over 100 is one way to say it. Well, what's the other way to say it? 70 hundredths. 70 hundredths. So, how do we write 70 hundredths? There you go. This is 70 hundredths. Okay. So we also need to get out of we also need to learn how to say this without saying 0.70. Okay. If we use the tenths place and the hundredths place, and we use all that all the language, those special words, that'll help us. Okay. 70 hundredths. Why? Why is this 70 hundredths? Because the zero is in the hundredths place. All right, let's move on. Actually, the next problems are for you to try on your own. So go ahead and try 3 and 4. I hope this video was helpful. If not, let us know and we can try to improve this video. Okay? Take care. Bye.